Jews out there.
We're all like at that one.
St. Paul, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to either.
You don't?
Oh, well, I actually
there?
would love to do. Yeah, I don't believe in people being cremated, but because of the whole Holocaust thing. But I don't get why we like. I don't really feel like I need to go there to sit at a stone where there's really nothing there. The soul to me is all around me of whoever I need to talk to. But I always appreciate when I hear people, because that was, to me, what you did with Daniel just makes more sense. I mean, it's so much more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I have different ideas. Like, to me, the tattoos that Jews got in the Holocaust were not a choice that they made.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think the alteration of the body is a link that I have with folks that either survive or were killed. And I also personally feel that even though Jews didn't choose to be cremated, and the Holocaust, as horrible as a thing as it was, I think that returning to the earth as dust is a very symbolic.
But that's interesting that you think that way.
You are listening to Alive and Social Network. We are Not So Kosher. We have a very special guest, Adam Levy, in with us, Studio C. We're going to bring him in to play a really personal song, and he'll tell you a little bit about this song.
This is the title track from the record Knob and Way, and it's a song about a very special day in the process of dealing with Daniel's death, and it was the day that we cast his ashes, or sort of buried our son. And we talked for about 6 months, what seems to make most sense to do with Daniel's ashes. And his mom reached out to me and said, I got an idea of what we should do with the ashes. The last time that I saw him smiling was at this little beach in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, on Lake Michigan, a little town called Nobbinway. I think you and his stepmom Victoria and his sisters and I should meet at this beach, and let's do it on his birthday, and let's cast his ashes out into the lake. And we did that, as well as a little bottle with a note in it, talking about what happened that day, and that our son was, his remains were there in the lake. And it was a beautiful day. It was a sunny day, and we were quiet. It probably took us 2 hours, to do that. We had this bag that was the weight of a cantaloupe or a quart of milk, which is remarkable that the human body, is this little tiny thing. And yet I just put my hands into it, and I smelled it, and I tasted it, and it was this amazing connection to my son, it felt. So this song is sort of the narrative of that day. Driving 500 miles to meet your mother, and you in a bag on the shores of Nobbinway. Your sisters are broken, your two mothers frozen. Only 6 months have passed since you've chosen to end the blows of an unbearable world. Now you be a pearl in Nobbinway. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, I bid you adieu, only if we must. Backwards baptism in Lake Michigan, I cradle my baby on his deathbed. Sleep, my beautiful son, in the shallows of Nobbinway. A fistful of you in your sister's hands, all that was left when they burned your mortal coil at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The powder was your bones, and all that the spirits, the fiery furnace, couldn't erase. We would place in Nobbinway. dust to dust. I bid you adieu, only if we must. A backwards baptism in Lake Michigan. I cradle my baby on his deathbed. Sleep, my beautiful son, in the shallows of Nobbin Way. Well, on the next day, we shed tears of jade as the radio played Niagara's cascade. Memories fade on the road from Nobbin Way. We went through your things and I slept in your bed. I wore your clothes, your specter shone from the grave in Nobbin Way. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I bid you adieu, only if we must. A backwards baptism in Lake Michigan. I cradle my baby on his deathbed. Sleep, my beautiful son, in the shallows of Nobbin Way.
Amazing song, Adam Levy. I'm completely ruined. I don't know how you perform that song. It's such a personal song, and the vulnerability in playing that, I applaud you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm having a hard time with words, but I'm so touched by that song.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. Becca, probably got to have you come in here.
Really? Okay. I thought you were going to get going, so I didn't have to do that.
It's like, okay, so ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry,
we have so many questions, and some of it, this goes back to the 90s when you guys were just coming out. You guys were huge. You had commercial success. You were opening for Bon Jovi, for real? Like, you want to talk about that? What do you recall from those crazy days?
Well, they certainly were crazy days, and things happened very rapidly. And, we were a rock band in a van traveling around the country. Our first record, we sat with a telephone and a map of the United States and push pins and just picked cities that we thought we should be going to and would canvass cities to find the right bar. This was so pre-internet, and we were kids, but we just wanted to play music. And the more we did it, the more sort of reaction that we got. And we were part of, I would say, a large movement of music, which was called kind of alt country or country rock or whatever from the 90s. And
Absolutely.
There were a lot of the record labels were really interested in it because they were seeing, like, these people are diehard music fans that are listening to this. They love bands like the Honeydogs, and there was Wilco, and there was Sunvolt, and there was the Jayhawks, and there was, I would even class the Wallflowers sort of as part of that kind of semi-acoustic folky rock movement. So it was sort of the flavor of the day to some extent, and we were propelled into something that we were excited about, but we certainly didn't anticipate that ever being the case. After playing for a year and a half of touring for, 200 days a year in some cases,
Wow.
We just liked playing. We didn't have any real goal other than, hey, we should get a major label deal because that's what everybody does. And when it happened, it was sort of this surreal, limousines in Los Angeles and New York and taking us out, record label people taking us out to meals and then setting us up on tours with In Excess or Bon Jovi. And it was really, we knew that it was just going to be a matter of time before the other shoe dropped. We weren't going to sustain anything like this. And there were rumblings, when we were signed to our deal, things were starting to fall apart. We were watching these change-ups at labels where people would lose their jobs really quickly, and labels were undergoing some really fundamental changes. And a lot of it was like CD sales were what was fueling this expansion of the record industry in the 90s, because people were buying like, oh, I got to get my whole Beatles collection or my reissued Led Zeppelin or whatever. And that died at a certain point. And then the record labels were trying to figure out how to sell records. And then very soon after that, the internet emerges, and people are figuring out other ways of getting music. So I guess my point is just that it was this, in terms of the length of my career, it was this little blink of an eye where we had probably more money than we'd ever seen before. And then it just, it petered out for many people. We weren't alone in having that and then losing it very rapidly.
5 minutes of fame.
Mm-hmm. Well, it had to be surreal. Like, you're watching the World Series right now, and you hear these kids say, as little leaguers, they always dreamed of being in the World Series, and there it is. It's like same thing for a kid growing up. I'm sure you played in a garage band. Or it's like, that's what we're going to play an arena someday, and boom, it happened.
Right.
So what can you tell us about that sort of experience playing with your brother on the kit? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I mean, playing with my brother was one of the most amazing things. There's just that connection, that sort of genetic, environmental amazingness. We listened to the same music growing up, and he's an amazing genius drummer guy. So it was just always a blast playing. When we fought constantly and argued, but that's what brothers do,
Yeah, that was my question. Gonna transition to the whole Gallagher brothers, Noah and Liam. They had monumental fights on stage, and so I was gonna ask you if anything ever happened like that on stage. If you guys ever had one of those riffs where you're like, I'm not doing this anymore, walk off the stage.
We never. I think professionally, we always managed to kind of put a game face on, but the stakes you're talking about with the Gallagher brothers, I who knows? Maybe my brother and I would have come to blows during a show. There were times where we would do stuff to each other at a show and be angry, but we didn't storm off stage, or we weren't. I think it was really important for us to kind of keep that hidden from folks. But our band members had to deal with it all the time, and they would watch us come to blows physically. And I can remember one time in a hotel in North Carolina, I came at my brother stark naked, coming out of the shower, running across the room at him with my bandmates, oh my God, he's doing it. Or one time we were in Iowa when my brother jumped on me into some cedar bushes in the wintertime, and we were wrestling, and it was like a scene from a movie, and my bandmates were just watching apoplectic from the van. What are we going to do? They're going to kill each other. But, it happens. And then eventually I think our relationship sort of ran its course in terms of professionally, artistically. He wanted to go off and do something else. And I think Noah's main drive was not that he didn't want to be making music with me. I think he just really wanted to make more money doing it. And so now we have the best of both worlds. We play together in Hookers and Blow, and I love his playing, and I think he really also digs my guitar playing as well. We played together for the first time in the Honeydogs in 12 years.
Wow. At
the Cedar Cultural Center when we re-released 10,000 Years in July. And that was really cool.
Any dates that you can tell us about coming up where the Honeydogs are going to be playing, or Hookers and Blow?
Yeah. Well, I've got the record release for the solo record on the 28th at the Cedar Cultural Center. The Honeydogs are going to be releasing a 45 as a sort of teaser to an album that we're going to release in 2016. And the day that we're going to put that record out and have it available is the day we're having a show at the Southern Theater, which is December 11th. Hookers and Blow plays a couple shows a month. I'm trying to think of the next Hookers and Blow show is probably the 21st of November at the Crooked Pint.
Yes.
Okay. Great venue.
Yeah.
And we're also playing the Astor on the 25th, so the day before Thanksgiving.
Cool.
And then I'm doing something at Lee's with the band that's supporting me for my record release. We're just going to do a night at Lee's of covers that's just for fun on the 27th of November.
Awesome.
And the next night we do the record release show on the 28th at the Cedar.
Cool. So I have a little bit of a question. I was really curious to know the whole thing about you being a teacher at McNally Smith. Like, are you known as being that really cool cat?